The 1980s brought us a heap of pop culture. Some may argue more lasting pop culture than any other decade. And one of the most unexpected icons of the decade came in the form of a boy named Pee-wee. How does a two-dimensional comedy character become one of the most famous people in Hollywood within just a few years, and launch the career of a world-famous director? Today on Retro Ruckus, we attempt to find out. Growing up in the 50s, Paul Reubens often found himself in front of a new invention called television, religiously tuning into shows like I Love Lucy, The Mickey Mouse Club, Captain Kangaroo, and Howdy Doody.
Look at all the boys and girls there at home. Hi, kids! And kids in the gallery, what time is it? Okay, let's sing it!
When his family moved to Sarasota, Florida, many of his neighbors were performers for the Ringling Brothers Circus, where Paul quickly became a frequent visitor. There's no doubt that these influences led him to become the oddball we know and love. Despite his parents' initial resistance, he pursued a career in entertainment, performing in plays in his backyard and eventually at a local theater. He moved to California, as all actors do, and worked restaurant and salesman jobs while studying acting at the California Institute of the Arts. After graduating in the 70s, he quickly found his footing in the Los Angeles comedy scene, performing on The Gong Show, a brief appearance in The Blues Brothers, and joining the legendary troupe The Groundlings. It was during these weekly performances that Paul found his comedic voice, and began harnessing this one.
Why don't you take a picture? It'll last longer.
In one Groundlings show, the cast was performing as characters you might see at a comedy club. Paul, however, was not a fan of performing stand-up comedy. His bits and characters were often on the absurd side. So he made his character a failing comedian, terrible at delivering jokes and responding to hecklers with the phrase,
I know you are, but what am I?
You're a nerd.
I know you are, but what am I?
You're an idiot.
I know you are, but what am I?
I know you are, but what am I?
He donned a gray suit borrowed from Groundlings director Gary Austin, a red bow tie from a friend, and the name of a harmonica Paul had as a child. And Pee-wee Herman was born. Fast forward a few years later. When Paul was rejected from Saturday Night Live, he figured his comedy career was over. On the brink of moving back home to Sarasota, he remembered that weird little comedian man he portrayed that was so popular a few years back. Maybe something was there. He borrowed some money from his parents and worked with fellow Groundlings Phil Hartman and John Paragon to revive the Pee-wee character into his own stage show. They drew inspiration from 50s children's shows like Howdy Doody, and tooled the character's angsty rebellion into that of an ageless child, mixing in elements of joy, wonder, and of course, absurdity.
Well, good morning. How do you do? Lots of surprises are just waiting for you. On your mark, get ready, get set. Now go, 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 because it's time now for the Pee-wee Herman Show.
The Pee-wee Herman Show follows a boy named Pee-wee living in a playhouse in Puppetland. He talks to the audience like they're children who've tuned into his show, while interacting with friendly neighbors like Terry the Pterodactyl, Captain Carl, and Miss Yvonne. While parodying a kiddie show, the play was written for the Groundlings crowd and included a slew of adult jokes and sexual innuendos. After an hour of educational segments and some audience interaction, the show ends with Jambi the Genie granting Pee-wee's wish to fly, ending in a musical number in which he proclaims,
I'm the luckiest boy in the world.
Can you imagine going to a random comedy show and then seeing this? I would be mind blown. The play premiered in 1981 with midnight performances at the Groundlings Theater, to a confused but mostly adoring audience. Critics praised its avant-garde style, unique set design, and described Paul Reubens as the weirdest comedian around. Like all bizarre things, it picked up a devoted cult following, moving to the Roxy Theater in Los Angeles, where it sold out for 5 months straight, and where HBO filmed the show as a comedy special, pushing Pee-wee into the mainstream. It was at this point that Paul decided to abandon his real name and absorb the Pee-wee Herman persona as a full-time gig, making appearances in TV shows, movies, and regularly being featured on Late Night with David Letterman, who once remarked, "What makes me laugh is that it has the external structure of a bratty little precocious kid, but you know it's being controlled by the incubus, the manifestation of evil itself." Constantly in character and popping up everywhere in the comedy world, Pee Wee Herman had unpredictably become the absurdist icon of the era. So much of an icon that Warner Brothers commissioned a full-length feature film. Films based on a single comedy character were a common thing at this time. Films that were successful at bringing comedy characters to the screen were way less common. How do you take this flamboyant and tempered man-child and write an entertaining 90-minute movie? That is the question Paul attempted to answer in an office on the Warner Brothers studio lot. Did I mention that he had never written a screenplay before? The odds were not in this movie's favor. Halfway through penning his first draft, Paul became distracted by something outside of his office. Bicycles. Something you'll see regularly on studio backlots is employees biking around to whatever set or office they're headed to. Paul jokingly asked Warner Brothers when he would get his, and as a gift, they gave him one, a refurbished 1940 Schwinn. He instantly fell in love. Paul then threw out his first draft and worked with collaborators Phil Hartman and Michael Varhol to start a new script, all about the bike. With this new script, the search was on to find a director who could match the twisted sensibilities of Pee Wee's humor and heart. In 1984, Paul attended his friend Shelley Duvall's screening, a short film made by Disney called Frankenweenie. He immediately knew that whoever its director was would be perfect at bringing Pee Wee to the screen. Warner Brothers agreed, and on a whim, they hired a young newcomer by the name of Tim Burton. Burton amplified the kitsch style and absurd humor of the Pee Wee stage show by adding nightmare sequences, stop-motion animation, and unique set design to the film, elements that fit perfectly in the world of Mr. Herman. When it came to who would compose the music of a story this grand, Paul had an unconventional idea, the frontman of his favorite band, Oingo Boingo. After attending a few concerts, Burton agreed, and rock star Danny Elfman reluctantly took on the task of writing his first ever film score. This is what you call the stars aligning, folks. Each of these artists' sensibilities collided to make the big screen debut of the world's unlikeliest hero.
I meant to do that.
Pee Wee's Big Adventure is a simple movie on the surface. When Pee Wee's beloved bike goes missing, he embarks on a journey through America and his imagination to find it, leading to a wild chase through Warner Brothers itself before becoming a hero and a big Hollywood star. Throw in a romantic pursuer,
Hi, Pee Wee.
an antagonist,
You'll be sorry, Pee Wee Herman.
hilarious stops at every turn,
Hey, man, we don't take kindly to strangers coming around here.
wacky side characters, an iconic dance sequence, slapstick humor, endless quotable scenes,
The stars at night are big and bright.
Danny Elfman's offbeat score, and Tim Burton's unique style,
It looked like this.
and you've got a movie like no one has ever seen before, or since. Just like Pee Wee Herman himself, the film almost immediately took on a loyal cult following, receiving positive reviews from critics and maintaining a number 3 spot at the box office for 6 weeks in a row. While it never outshined its competition, a movie about a time-traveling DeLorean, it eventually grossed $40 million on a humble $7 million budget, and has retained its cult classic status ever since. Its success led Warner Brothers to offer Tim Burton another film, a little movie called Beetlejuice, launching his career as one of Hollywood's top directors, a position he still holds to this very day. Danny Elfman has continued to score almost all of Burton's films, composing music for over 100 Hollywood projects. As for Pee Wee, he used the movie's success to revive his original stage play as a genuine morning kids show for all ages, Pee Wee's Playhouse, which won 15 Emmys during its run and cemented the character as a pop culture sensation. And perhaps best of all, in 1985, Pee Wee Herman hosted his own episode of Saturday Night Live, only a few years after Paul Reubens was rejected from the cast. That's showbiz, baby. On paper, a Pee Wee Herman movie never should have worked. It was a low-budget comedy by a first-time director, scored by a first-time movie composer, with a script written by first-time screenwriters about a character who had never even had a leading role on television, let alone a big-screen movie. But ironically, those exact aspects are the very reason that it thrived. Rather than making a movie for fans of the stage show, Paul Reubens wrote a story that introduced Pee-wee to the world, with jokes that were funny whether you knew the character or not. Instead of choosing a director and composer already known for their work in Hollywood, Paul picked promising young weirdos who would use their unique styles to help the story flourish as a true work of art. Not only is Pee-wee's Big Adventure timelessly funny, it's a time capsule of a few young artists sharing their absurdity with the world. And that is how a boy named Pee-wee evolved from the stage to the big screen.
Come on, Dottie, let's go.
Let's go. Don't you want to see the rest of the movie?
I don't have to see it, Dottie. I lived it.